Welcome back to the 12 Days of Christmas for 2021. This is day 8, and today's show is Marvel's What If, the fourth of the 5 Marvel Disney Plus series that we got this year, the only animated one of the bunch, and also Marvel Studios' first ever animated kind of production, kind of exploring different possibilities in the world of the MCU and, you know, how things could have gone differently, etc., etc. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of the concept. So yeah, I reacted to that on the channel this year with my friend Connor, who also did all the Disney Plus shows with me. This is the second Marvel Disney Plus show in this 12 Days of Christmas. We already covered WandaVision, and it's going to be the final one as well, because there just wasn't room to do all of them. I've kind of already talked about that. But the reason when I had to narrow it down, I mean, Hawkeye still hasn't finished yet, so I didn't really have any ideas for that. So that's kind of an easy one to be like, well, you know, maybe in the future we can do something with that. But when it came to this, I thought it was, you know, one of the more different shows that we got this year, because obviously it's animated, and there's a whole kind of cast of characters in there that we could kind of explore and discuss. And I just feel like it was one of the more creative ideas that we got this year in terms of Marvel Studios, like Disney Plus productions. So I thought that would be a good one to focus on. And I was thinking about what to do for it. And then it kind of dawned on me that after the Falcon and the Winter Soldier edition of Marvel Studios Assembled on Disney Plus, which is like making of documentaries, I haven't actually seen any from Loki onwards. So I thought it would be good to maybe do a reaction to the making of What If, because I think out of all of them, even though I will get around to watching them all eventually, you know, I think this would be the most different in terms of like how this was made, and I'd like to see how Marvel Studios approached something that they really haven't delved into before, and exactly what went into the making of it, as opposed to a lot of the other live action stuff. You know, you can kind of know a bit of what to expect from some of it, but I think this was just such a different thing. It'd be really cool to get a look in at the process of it. Also, keeping my fingers crossed that copyright's going to be fine for this one. We'll see how it goes. Disney Plus shows are very difficult to edit on YouTube. You've probably noticed that I always have to put logos over the top of the footage, otherwise it just ain't happening. So maybe it's going to be the same for this edition. We'll have to wait and see. But regardless, I am excited to finally check out more of these like behind the scenes documentaries, because I do like seeing how stuff like this is made. So it should be really interesting. And once I kind of had the idea, I have kind of held off until now to watch it. So very, very excited to see what we have in store with this one. So yeah, let's just get right into it.
And ask the question, what if?
Perfect, thank you.
Such a good voice.
What If was a bit of a gateway to different comics you wouldn't normally pick up. You know, I loved Ghost Rider growing up, and I think
That's
the first
true,
Ghost
yeah.
Rider I picked up
It might get you a bit
was,
more interested in different characters that
What
way.
If Danny
Maybe
Pink
different
is
versions
Caesar
of them
became
appeal
Ghost
to you
Rider
more.
instead of him. You didn't feel like you needed to read the 60 comics leading up to that one storyline. It was its own unique thing.
That's also
that
true.
you could
There's no kind of
experience as a newcomer.
weight to it then. In a good way.
Trying out, you know, safely in this little one-off comic, and then if it struck a chord, they could run with it. So, for example, like what if
true.
Hulk was smart?
It is a clever way of testing the waters, isn't it? Without too much of a backlash. It's probably quite overwhelming to think of all the ideas. Like, must be some they really hated having to cut.
The key to the stories that were ultimately chosen is that they were all character-based stories. They all drove the
I really loved the Doctor Strange one. That was so good.
We started them playing more with, what if Yondu kidnapped the wrong kid instead of Peter Quill? What happens next?
Yeah, because they could have picked so many people for that to be.
It wasn't just what if, it was also then what. So every pitch that we came up with, every
That's a cool
idea
way
that
of
we conceived of
looking at it.
had two parts. It had the what if, which was essentially the inciting incident, and it had the then what, which is the actual story.
Yeah, you have to actually sell the concept then.
One of the things we're exploring in Phase 4, which we've talked about, is the multiverse. And what if...
To put it lightly.
Every episode,
The voice we all heard in our head was Jeffrey Wright from day one.
I am the one.
It was the right choice.
Humans. He was introduced, if I'm not mistaken, in a Fantastic Four comic in 1963, where we discover him on the moon, and he's introduced
Oh.
on the cover as
Someone's done his research.
the most dramatic being, it's a prism of endless possibilities.
Imagine being able to sound that cool.
Animation,
Damn.
There's kind of a running joke in the comic books. He says he'll never interfere. Wait 5 pages, and there he is in the middle of it.
The being is mysterious for the first initial episodes, and we start.
Yeah, he kind of has his own arc, which I liked. I think it would have been a shame if he was just the narrator for the whole thing.
We've been so lucky that he's been wanting to like come and play in our
Oh
sandbox.
man.
I've always been a fan of Jason Lancaster.
Imagine being
and-
talented.
I was trained that there's no difference between animation and live action, even though clearly there are things that are different. But at its core, it's just all visual storytelling. It's
Yeah,
composition with
I don't think it should be like
it's
one
emotion,
over the other
it's
per se.
character. Just make something rad 2D, so that we would have the artistic freedom to have it look as rich as we want.
Makes sense. It should like stylistically and visually look. Like, that'd be the priority.
You don't have to just go to a movie to see cinematic storytelling. We're actually seeing it on the streaming screen, on the small screen.
That's true.
There's so many shows out now.
Stuff like Game of Thrones really started that, I think.
Language is just going there. So they are, even though they're quote
The lines are getting more and more blurred.
Peggy Carter becoming Captain Carter was a very, very early concept. And also, right on the heels of that,
I'm not surprised
then
with that,
half of the story
because they made it
was
episode 1 as well. It felt like it was an initial idea.
Chadwick was so amazing to work with that it just felt like he would embrace the idea.
I did hear he was one of the first actors to sign on for it.
At a certain
how much can he actually change just by him being awesome and everyone just wanting to be part of his awesome.
by her relationship with T'Challa, who she calls Cha-Cha, which is very funny. It was something Karen Gillan came up with on the day during the recording. And most exciting...
I love that they did let the actors kind of come up with their own inputs as well.
Nice to hear him again.
I was the one who told you I wanted
It
to
was.
see the world. All you did was show
I'm
me
glad we got a little something more.
They're like, yeah, we're trying to figure out what does an evil Thor look like. And my response was, I don't think he looks evil. I think he looks like a douchebag.
You're Thor?
For the Doctor Strange one, that was the one that we wanted to really lean into the horror, the macabre. So bringing in aspects of,
You succeeded.
craft.
It was cool to have an episode where, like, it at the time at least, he doesn't really get his redemption, but it does all go wrong.
What If also gave us a way to do a big fan favorite that we've not done before, which is
Yeah.
Marvel Zombies.
This is what they were talking about earlier, I guess, about testing the waters with ideas. Yeah, that's what they use the comics for, and they use the show for it as well. Because obviously we're getting a zombie show now.
They've got now 2 seasons of What If ideas underway that some of the best storytelling we've ever had, and you may see.
Well, we know they're going to reuse the Gamora one, I think,
Is really
that they couldn't finish because of COVID.
beautiful animated series I've seen.
We know there's a Black Widow one coming.
We wanted to tell a complete story
Yeah, it is a complete story.
in those 10, now 9 episodes.
I'm glad it had like an arc of its own though as a season, because I think it would have. I don't think it would have resonated as strongly if
the
not.
characters, the relationship between Captain Carter and the Watcher, which is something that evolves in a grand fashion in the 2nd season of the show.
Interesting. So we are revisiting these same characters again. So I was wondering, like, what is their story idea for season 2?
They have what exists on film, what exists in the comics, but then in their heads they have these other, imaginings and stories that they tell too. And I think
They have
that's
fan
all
fiction.
what
Fan
makes
fiction
us
is the
those
world's
ideas.
What If. Okay, that was a really interesting look into, how they kind of made that first season. I was kind of wondering that which ideas did they kind of come up with fairly early on. And I kind of assumed, when they had ideas locked in, like, okay, well, let's just do that episode. Episode 1, sorted. Episode 2, sorted. So the fact that, the Captain Carter one and the T'Challa Star-Lord one was like their early ideas, it makes sense they were the earlier episodes. It kind of just like they filled them in order they thought of them almost. And then they were probably thinking of like larger arcs and stuff, because they came back to the whole multiverse thing at the end, which I really appreciated. That was, one of my favourite things about What If ultimately was the fact that there was like a big arc to it, and the Watcher wasn't just there being like, I'm a narrator for every episode, because I think that would have been a bit of a waste of Jeffrey Wright. So I'm glad that the Watcher did actually end up having quite a bit of an arc. Not getting involved with Doctor Strange in episode 4, then kind of coming back asking him for help when he's forming the Guardians of the Multiverse, and the fact that Ultron with all the Infinity Stones threatens the multiverse, and then he kind of the Watcher's forced to stepping in. I thought it was a very cleverly constructed story, and getting to revisit a lot of the key characters in that first season was a fun way of ending that off. And it seems like we're going to see at least Captain Carter again next season, because they were talking like season 2, a big part of it will be Captain Carter and the Watcher's relationship, which I wasn't expecting actually. So I thought, next season might just be entirely new characters again, with maybe the exception being, they were working. It was supposed to be 10 episodes, not 9, and they do have a Gamora episode from the Gamora that we met in the finale. She was supposed to have an episode to herself, but they couldn't finish it because of COVID. And I think they've said that that's going to be the season 2 premiere. They're just going to finish off that episode and use it, which makes sense. It'd be a waste otherwise. So I thought maybe outside of that, they'd be doing completely new stuff all over again, maybe a brand new arc, because it felt like they wrapped up everything nicely with the other guys. Because even the Captain Carter with the post-credit scene, it seemed like she was going to be reunited with Steve again. But maybe we're going to continue that story in an interesting way. So I'm excited about that. I don't know if we're going to see, most of those characters again. Obviously, we're probably not going to see any more T'Challa, very sadly. But maybe some of the other Guardians in the Multiverse, we will revisit them again and again. I hope that doesn't become like the dominant thing per se, because I think with the whole interesting idea of What If is that we get to see a whole bunch of people. I don't want it to just be necessarily the same characters season after season. I quite like the idea of it just being a contained arc in one season, then we move on and do different things with different people in the next one. But I'm more than willing to see where they go with that, and it is interesting that they have all the ideas well in place working on season 2. Makes sense, as animation's going to take bloody ages, so they probably need to work quite far ahead on it. I don't think we even know exactly when it's going to be coming out. Probably 2023 or something, I'd imagine, for season 2. But yeah, it's cool to get a bit of an insight into what their thoughts are for the future of it as well as the fact that they had planned it just in case, for whatever reason they didn't make a season 2. They did have that complete story done, which I really appreciated, and we had some fantastic episodes in that first season. I loved a lot of them. I really enjoyed the Doctor Strange one. I loved the Marvel Zombies one as well. So yeah, we got some really good stuff in that first season for sure. And yeah, like they were kind of saying, it's just the possibilities are endless in what they can do. So I can't imagine how difficult it is really to have to cut some ideas out and cut them down and be like, okay, that's a good concept, but is there space for it here? Do we have to save it? Can we not do it? Can we not see ourselves doing that? Because I liked what one of them was saying, it's what if, but also what then? That comes after. They need to make around a 30-minute episode out of it as well. So you can have a really strong idea, but if you don't really know an interesting thing for what happens after that, it's kind of pointless having that great idea. So I thought that was a really interesting concept, and an interesting way of looking at it that I hadn't really considered. Because you might think like, oh, what if blah 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 blah, what a great idea. But when you sit down and be like, we need to get like a 30-minute story out of this, what if you just can't? So I hadn't really considered that, and I like that kind of thought process, and it just shows how much hard work goes into just crafting those stories, much less than kind of designing it all, coming up with a technically brand new art style for it. I like that they did prioritise how it visually looked, above like everything has to be 2D or everything has to be 3D. They would just use what worked for them, if they thought it looked the best it could be. And I think, for better or worse, at times that decision ultimately paid off. So yeah, it was cool seeing how that all worked and seeing the initial illustrations and how things developed, how ideas may have shifted with collaborations. Like it's going to be like evil Thor, but ultimately, he's just more of a jerk than evil if he was never banished, which I think makes a lot more sense than just having Thor be evil. So I like that, it's not just they have this initial idea and they run with it, they often refine it and stuff as well to properly get the most out of it. So yeah, I really liked seeing how this all worked. Talk about Chadwick and everything's very emotional as well. Still not over that. Never probably will be. But yeah, getting to glimpse Jeffrey Wright kind of recording the lines and stuff. Just what a fucking cool voice. Like I really do think that was the perfect choice, I think, for The Watcher. He was so good. And I can't wait to see what they bring with season 2 and beyond. You know, what ideas they may have cooking up in there. So I think we are getting that Gamora episode. They've already said there's going to be one around Black Widow. We don't know what concept that could be, but there was going to be one. Outside of that, possibilities are endless. I'm sure it's going to be some of the maybe later films, maybe some phase 3 or 4, even 4 stuff, you know. It'd be funny to do like WandaVision, but Vision the other way around. I know we kind of got that in Marvel Zombies in a sense, but, you know, maybe something with Agatha from WandaVision, or, you know, they could do, like, I don't know, what if Bucky became Captain America, not Sam? I'm not sure they should really do that one. That probably won't go down very well. I'm not sure how I'd feel about that. But, you know, just even with the fact that it's only really the MCU characters in that universe that they're putting spins on with this particular what if, you know, there's still so much they can do with it. So I'm really excited for the future of it and what they have in store for us, or whenever season 2 comes about. I'm more than happy to wait, because obviously they still have so much stuff coming out in the interim, you know. It's not like we're really ever waiting for that long until the next thing comes out, be it a show or a movie. Again, for better or worse. So yeah, it was cool to see, you know, the trials and tribulations of them making this first venture into animation for Marvel Studios, and, you know, did a pretty damn good job. So can't really fault them for how things ended up, especially when some of this production clearly was affected by COVID. The fact that we still got a really great first season is awesome. I look forward to the future. But yeah, that was really good, really interesting. I definitely should check out all the other documentaries that I haven't seen yet. But I thought that'd be a good one to try and react to, because it's something very different for Marvel Studios in terms of what they produced. So I thought, you know, there's maybe more to gain from if I had to watch one right now, it would be that one, which is why we're covering What If. And it was a really great series. You can obviously check out mine and Connor's reactions to it on the channel. If you have already seen them, thank you for supporting them. I hope you enjoyed those reactions and What If in general. You know, let me know what your favourite episodes were from season 1 of What If. You know, what ideas maybe do you have for future installments in season 2 and beyond? It'd be really cool to see what ideas they kind of come up with. And you know, I think everyone kind of has one or two that instantly come to mind, like, oh, I'd love to see this. And, you know, for other people, they're like, oh, I didn't even think of that, that's really cool. So it'd be a great discussion to see what, like, just people in general come up with that may not even be like working on the show. So yeah, really interesting prospect, and I'm excited for season 2 whenever it does arrive. But yeah, that is going to be everything for this day of Christmas. I will see you tomorrow for another one. And yeah, at the time of recording this, there's still another 2 episodes of Hawkeye. By the time this goes out, it may have just about finished, perhaps. Be blimmin' soon anyway. This might even come out the day it finishes. I can't remember quite, but regardless, you know, we're still going to have those reactions coming out around this sort of time to round off our year of Disney Plus content. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, see ya.